Oh my god, the US has sent B-1 bombers to the Middle East. Oh my god, there's a Mercury E6 Doomsday plane in Europe. Is this it? Does this mean it's happening? No, nothing happens, guys. Nothing ever happens. You should have learned that by now. Now, obviously, this is not a general news channel. As I've previously said, I have one lane I want to stick in, which is just the HFGCS and US military communications over shortwave radio. So when I say nothing happens, what am I talking about? Well, let's talk about last week. So in a video I put out last week, the tweets I put out, I said, I think there is a high probability that there will be a SKYMASTER event that occurs on or around January 31st, maybe February 1st. And, you know, in addition to tweets explaining the rationale, I did a 2-hour live stream. And just in case, I also put out a 50-minute edited version of that live stream, walking through, you know, the history of these events as far as what we know about them, as little as that is. I explained how I was able to correctly, more or less, anticipate a SKYMASTER event occurring on January 11th. And based on what had happened in years prior, I expected one to start again at the end of January or early February. And I decided to this time actually put out a date rather than something more speculative, because I figured this would be very neat if I actually got one dead on. I also, in very small little letters, said also what's happened in the past. Sometimes it'll click, maybe it gets delayed a week, so if it's not February 1st, maybe it'll be February 7th, February 8th. To communicate this to people, to say, hey, I think now would be a really good time to listen in, because these SKYMASTER things, we don't know too much about them, and they're barely documented online, and the one on January 11th had hundreds of EAMs, all kinds of crazy message formats. I'm trying to, you know, convey to people this would be a good time to listen to the HFGCS, so I kind of impromptu came up with this kind of yellow, DEFCON-esque condition and alert scheme, and said, you know, if you're even slightly interested in the HFGCS, now would be a better time to listen than usual, because I think you might hear something. In addition to, you know, this condition yellow, the SKYMASTER watch, all these stratas and color schemes, I'm like, I'm going to regret this, aren't I? Because what happened on January 31st? Nothing. Nothing ever happens. Certainly on my streams, there were no SKYMASTER messages or transmissions heard. No one else reported anything else. So was I wrong? Am I using, you know, that, oh, maybe it's going to be this week as kind of my get out of jail free? You know, if it wasn't last week, maybe it'll be this Wednesday, guys. This is it. This is the big one. No, because first of all, I've seen on other channels, people will constantly say, oh, it could be today, it could be today. And again, that's something else we'll get into in today's video. But I decided to set up some hard parameters for myself in advance, which is why I put out these 2 dates in advance. I said, you know, there is some previous exercises that were held around the start of February, and if not the very start of February, then the week after. But this is not going to be a scenario where I'm going to keep announcing, oh, it's this Wednesday, guys. So it's not going to be, you know, Wednesday the 14th. It's not going to be Wednesday the 21st, the 28th. And I'm not going to go into March, etc., etc. I'm only going to do this chutzpah and chutzpah when I think there are at least some previous dates around that time or something of interest. Now, if you were following me on Twitter, you probably saw even the day of January 31st, I kind of realized I want to drag my feet on this a little bit. If you read the 3rd paragraph, it says the condition yellow will be elevated to orange on January 31st. And again, I put this out on January 30th, basically saying, you know, this is how we're going to run this. This is what it's going to look like. I'm not going to do this on the fly in the seat of my pants. I want this to be kind of outlined for you guys in advance, so it does not look like this is clickbait or something. That there is some rhyme or reason to what I'm doing. And then on January 31st, instead of automatically escalating to a condition orange and saying, you know, this is it, guys, I think any minute now there's going to be a SKYMASTER, I had an opportunity to look through how, you know, flight maps had looked on previous SKYMASTER events, see what kind of posts people had been making during previous SKYMASTER events. And it seemed like maybe there were some clues, or certainly something I'd want to do was kind of involve, you know, people who were flight monitors, maybe people who looked at other, you know, data in terms of open source intelligence for tracking this kind of stuff. And I said, rather than solely going off date, I think I'm not going to escalate to this condition orange that I've invented unless at least one other thing is pointing to it. And on the day of, I did not get the sense that there was anything that was looking out of sorts or out of place. And so I said, you know, we're going to leave it at yellow. That ended up being the right call because, again, nothing happened. However, that wasn't exactly the right logic. So just to kind of briefly go over the logic, and if you watched the previous videos, you're already familiar with it. But previous SKYMASTERs,
seem to be semi-periodic. Now, these are just the dates that I was able to find documented. I think it's fair to assume that there have probably been more SKYMASTERs over the last few years. It's just people don't monitor them, people don't post about them online, etc., etc. This is what I have so far. Some of this documentation may not be quite right. You know, sometimes people will post online that they heard a message on a Wednesday, but then if you take the time to double check that we're using kind of their local time zone, it was actually broadcast on Tuesday, etc., etc. So there's a little bit of wobble with some of those dates, and I haven't had an opportunity to double check. Anyways, as you can see, circled here in boxed here in red, there was a SKYMASTER February 1st, 2023. If you look in 2002, there was one on February 1st that year. If you look before that, there was one February 10th, so that's the one where I was thinking, oh, maybe they delayed it a little bit. So that was kind of the logic, and what I wanted to do, as I posted kind of very early on January 31st, I said, I want something else. I want someone to say, oh, this is a weird kind of noticed all airman that I've never seen before. As you can kind of see here, I'm not familiar with whether this is someone who usually does monitor the flight radars and said, oh, B-52s don't normally do that. But that happened to line up with one of the dates of interest, again, the February 1st, 2023. They said this B-52 is doing something strange, and we know B-52s do seem to be involved in SKYMASTER exercises. Another thing around that time, we'll get into the fine print here, but there was an E6 in Europe around the time of last year's February SKYMASTER exercise. So I said, I don't want to go just off the date. I want something more before I jump to orange. So this is all fine and great, you guys. Why didn't I do this before, right? Well, partly because there's one big giant floating problem that just roams right into that, you know, early February 2023 time period, which, if you guys have forgotten, it's our good old friend, the Chinese spy balloon. Now, this may even play into why there was so little documentation of the February 2023 SKYMASTER event. I think most of the people who might have noticed it were more distracted about what's this little Chinese spy balloon going to do, as opposed to me, you know, keeping an eye out for a SKYMASTER event. So you kind of have to bear this guy in mind as we look through that time period. Nonetheless, with that asterisk, as I had time on, you know, the evening of January 30th, early January 31st, I kind of looked through everything again, and I said, what are some of the clues that I can look for? And one of the things I mentioned, E6 was in Europe around the time. Now, I've circled a few things here for you that are of interest. One, it does seem like during some, but not all SKYMASTER events, it's very hit or miss. There is often an E6 that assumes this very interesting kind of holding pattern in northern Wisconsin, kind of dead center amongst the Great Lakes there. It seems like an occasional thing to look for, but it's not definite that this occurs during SKYMASTER events. Another thing, again, this E6 in Europe, this seems hit or miss. I don't even know, that could just be a coincidence and not a strong correlation as far as whether those have anything to do with SKYMASTER events. The third thing I've circled for you, if you're quick on this enough, you've probably already noticed it, that's February 2nd, 2023. But I said the SKYMASTER messages went out February 1st, 2023, the day before. So I was thinking, oh, is this another case where someone's kind of mucked up the dates they documented it? And I realized, wait a minute, I'm the person who documented it. I'm the one who came up with this February 1st, 2023 SKYMASTER exercise date. Boy, am I going to look like an absolute moron. Wow, is my face going to be blood red if it turned out that these messages actually went out February 2nd. And I'm cross-referencing stuff, and I'm like, you know, I probably should have done a better job documenting. Now I'm not sure whether these went out February 1st or February 2nd, but I am saved by a very interesting thing, which is the video upload date. So certainly, if it was uploaded February 1st, 2023, it could not have gone out February 2nd, 2023, so foolish of me to doubt myself. That is when the SKYMASTER event happened. That is when those messages went out. Again, if you look up that video, you can listen to those all 4 messages I heard. Well, just for the sake of it, what did the E6 map look like on February 1st? This is not a map that screams a SKYMASTER event is going on to me. There is not anything that sticks out. This, if you were to show me this flight map, this looks like any of the ones I've seen on a random day the last few months that have started to do this more actively. There's, you know, nothing that odd as far as I can tell. And again, anyone who's looking at this map around this period of time was probably more interested in our friend from China. But this is kind of a tangent now. I'm getting away from what this video should be about, which is Was I wrong about the SKYMASTER event in 2024? Did I not look at the information we have on hand well enough? And I guess, first of all, am I using a cop-out excuse here? Am I doing this? Well, I did say it might actually be the week after, because then that means, well, then surely the SKYMASTER event is happening this Wednesday, February 7th / Thursday, February, for sure. I'm vouching on that with absolute certainty. I'm not saying that. I would love to be able to say that, but that's not what I'm saying. And again, before I kind of escalate to that, I'm saying that there's a higher probability, but I want there to be something else. So what are the things that I mentioned? You know, even though the dates are kind of waffly, maybe these things loosely correspond. I would like to see an E6 in the Michigan area. I would like to see an E6 in Europe. I would like to see B-52s doing something where people kind of say, that's odd. At least one of those noticed all airmen that people kind of perk their ears or eyes or whatever at. Now, out of all these parameters, as I'm kind of like listing these off and saying, you know, maybe sometime later this week, I'm going to look into this a little bit more. Saturday, February 4th, an E6 goes to Europe. So this is one of those things where I was saying, well, maybe this means it is more likely, and in combination with dates, we can kind of figure out what's going on. Well, first of all, just to kind of contextualize how I even noticed this, the question I would have if I was a person watching the stream and listening to me right now would be, was there a SKYMASTER event on February 4th? Like, were you monitoring that night? And the good news is, yes, I was. On the night of February 4th, or kind of early hours, technically going by the universal time zone clock, there were about 70 AMs that went out in like this very brief 15-minute window. And this is something I've seen before. I pointed out to people who follow me on Twitter, less to say, it's happening, oh my goodness, it's happening. More to say, hey, if you guys want to hear messages in real time, tune in. Now is the time for it, because they seem to be going out nonstop. And I said, you know, there's nothing remarkable about these. And I said that in the sense that they're all your typical run-of-the-mill 30-character EAM, the kind we hear all the time. And I kind of thought to myself, yeah, I would like to figure out what is going on with these, because there must be something more to this. Like, is this like a periodic status update of some kind that happens on these kind of weekend nights? And as I'm kind of looking through stuff, I noticed in some of the data that I've added to the live streams, I'll get to it in a moment, there's something about an E6 asking about the weather at an airport in Germany. Stuttgart Airport, EDDS, when you look that up, that is the ICAO code for Stuttgart, Germany. And that is coming from the ACARS, the ACARS, that I've added to the live stream. So that was coming from this one. This E6AE0412 was asking about the weather in Germany, as it kind of takes this very interesting flight pattern over Canada, which it normally does not do. And if you kind of kept watching the live stream, I would have been already asleep by now. But it changed its request to the weather in Ramstein Air Force Base, Air Base. It's not an Air Force Base. It is an Air Force Base, but it's only called Air Base. Anyways, and again, if you look that up, that's going to give you the Ramstein Air Base. So again, we can kind of look back on last year around this time. There was an E6 in Europe, and that's when the SKYMASTER exercises roughly went out. So does this now mean that a SKYMASTER event is going to happen? No, nothing happens, guys. Nothing ever happens. Well, okay, maybe. First of all, why am I even making this video? I think I haven't really done a good job of prefacing that, and this is a point where I want to segue into that a little bit. No one has called me out, right? Like, nobody pinged me on Twitter, nobody replied to my YouTube comments saying, hey, neat intel, you predicted that there would be a SKYMASTER event in early February. Nothing happened. You're wrong. No one said that. But just as you've seen in some of my previous posts and some of the things that I'm talked about, I'm very wary of alarm fatigue. I'm trying to be as reserved as possible in these predictions so that I can still make them on a somewhat ongoing basis. And even though most of them will be wrong, the win-lose ratio, if you like, is not so skewed that people completely tune out. Now, what happened last week, concurrent to everything else that I was interested in, there was an incident where the United States Central Command attacked Iranian assets in Syria and I believe Iraq. It's not something I was definitely interested in. I didn't expect any messages on the HFGCS to be related to it. But from the Sunday night where it became obvious that the US was going to do this, and then throughout the rest of the week, there were so many YouTubers who were saying, you know, Any minute now. It's about to happen. It could happen. Now, I've picked one channel in particular, and it's not because I think they did a particularly bad job along these lines. It's just that I think of all the channels that come to mind, this is the one that would probably be the least offended or upset. They're not even aware of my existence, etc. And I don't have a particular bone to pick with them. So just as an example, but not the example, there were worse channels out there. Agenda Free TV on the Sunday night explained that 3 U.S. soldiers were killed in a drone attack, and then that meant that the U.S. was going to respond. And then throughout that week, Agenda Free TV ran these live streams, question marks, response to Iran. It could be any minute. So you see on the 6 days ago, response to Iran, question mark. Then the day after, U.S. response to Iran soon, question mark. I watched on the streams. He's saying any minute now, you guys, it could be imminent. And there were other people I watched on YouTube, but they were saying, it could be tonight, guys. It could be tonight. This could be it. And throughout the whole week, they just kept saying, it could be now. It could be now. It could be now. And I'll be honest with you guys, the algorithm pushes you to do this. If you are a YouTuber, if you are on Twitter, I imagine if you're on any social media platform, you are incentivized to throw up these big red labels, say, red alert, guys, it's about to happen. And I think it just causes alarm fatigue. Certainly for a niche interest like mine, I do not want to scare you away with an endless litany of predictions that turn out to be right. Turn out to be wrong, sorry. Most of my predictions already will be wrong because there's so little documentation on this, but now I have to try and think of a way to communicate to folks a different way maybe of making these predictions. So instead of like a condition yellow or, a DEFCON 3 or a DEFCON, whatever the DEFCON numbers or emergency alert, or any of that kind of vernacular, at least for now, February 4th, and I guess today for YouTube, February 5th, I kind of said condition law what? Is anything going to happen this week? Does an E6 in Europe mean it's happening? I don't know, because in the past there have been E6s in Europe. I think the Intel Frog tipped me off that a E6 was in Ramstein Air Base in 2021. Certainly there were E6s, as we saw, February 2023 in the United Kingdom. I believe in the middle of the year, I found an E6 in, somewhere in like Central Europe. I think France, maybe. Don't quote me on that, please. What I'm trying to say for now is it's a better time probably, and I mean that literally, like probably. Does that make sense what I'm going for there? We don't know what SKYMASTER exercises are. We don't know what's going on with them. I have my guesses. I want more data. I want more information. I want more recordings. And if you are interested in this stuff, you probably are too. And if you want to try and hear them, I think now is a better time to listen than other times. However, I'm not saying for sure. And after this week, again, I've got SKYMASTER exercise dates in the past, the point of February. I haven't found any, while I've been searching, anything saying that they happen in March. They do happen in April, but it'll be pretty quiet, at least in terms of my predictions, for a few weeks after this. So certainly now, I think would be a better time to listen than in March, is generally what I'm trying to say here. So again, instead of these, alerts, cautions, whatever, this is what I've come up with for now, and I hope that's the sufficient explanation. Having said that, what should you listen to? So last week I said the U20 WebSDR is probably the most useless thing you could do to try and listen to SKYMASTER exercises because they're mostly flying over the continental US. Well, now we have an E6 in Europe. There are transmitters in Europe. So you have a HFGCS station in Sigonella, is in Italy. You've got Croton, that's in the United Kingdom. You have Lodges, which is Portugal, or a little island off the coast of Portugal, and occasionally Diego Garcia, which is somewhere in the Indian Ocean. This is going off memory, so if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Those occasionally get good propagation over Europe, and again, those are going to be the typical frequencies, 4724, 8992, 1175, 15016. However, Ramstein Air Base probably has its own set of shortwave radio frequencies. I looked into this a little bit. The first result I found online, I'm not going to share here because it's well out of date, but you can find it yourself if you're interested. In 2003, someone documented that those were the 5 frequencies that Ramstein was known to use, and they documented that they used the call sign metaphor. In the HFGCS Discord, there was a gentleman or woman, I'm not sure, username Arctic Fox, They mentioned Metaphor was still in use as of 2019. However, they listed 2 completely different frequencies. I don't think that person's still active in the server. Again, that's 2019. That was a long time ago now. It's 2024, guys. It's the current year. But those are the 2 frequencies. You can tune in. Maybe you will hear something that nobody else will. Maybe you will hear a Sky King. Maybe you won't. A SKYMASTER. Maybe you'll hear a Sky King. I don't know. But there is a chance you'll hear something someone else hasn't documented online, because I can tell you, as I try and find out, have people ever listened in during these times when an E6 is in Europe to figure out what it's doing? I don't find much information, so you can help contribute. Now, for my part, I did do a couple additional streams this week, so in addition to the usual HFGCS live streams, which are using antennas located in the US. I did do a couple short streams using the U20 Web SDR, and that was using my extra laptop. I'm not going to do too many more of those because I can tell you this is kind of me. I did a few test streams with that device last week, but as I listened to it this week, and I look at it like its temperature and stuff, I'm like, this is a fire hazard because the fan is constantly on. It's constantly running at like 90 degrees Celsius. I had it sitting on a wood table, and today I'm watching the stream and I realized that's basically a fire hazard. So that's not a good idea for me to keep doing that. But the 24/7 live stream from the continental US will keep going. So if there is a SKYMASTER exercise and it does involve the continental US portion, which I would hope it does, but then again, I don't know because we know very little about these, I should capture at least some of that, even if I'm away from my computer. And certainly if I'm at my computer when these things happen, I will start the stream up. I'll start the additional stream up. I'll grab the fire extinguisher just in case, and I will bring that to you guys. But what I will never bring to you, I guess, is any absolute definitive statement that, well, unless I actually hear them say SKYMASTER, I'm not going to in advance say that a 100% certainty that a SKYMASTER event is going to happen, because nothing ever happens. That's the channel update for this week. Guys, this continues to take more time and effort than I expected. I was really hoping by now to kind of walk away and just leave the stream running in the background, and then if I hear something, I'll come back. But I'm like, I don't know, this needs a little bit more digging, needs a little bit more research before I can kind of go more of a passive mode. So if you appreciate this video, appreciate last week's video, the efforts to pull all this together, anything sent my way helps out. And again, portion I will set aside to upgrade the hardware that I use for these streams and data collections so that I'm not running, fire hazards. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies. Actually, before I end the stream, I just want to say one more thing. The ACARS data that I've added to the live stream, that is something I'm working on with the Bald Geek. If you guys aren't following me on Twitter, most of the open source intelligence flight trackers that you see on Twitter, that you see on YouTube, probably use this channel. There was some from EAM.watch that briefly ran a live stream of E6s and ACARS data, and they had his website in the corner of their live stream, never credited, never said what it was. The guy's an unsung hero of what a lot of folks in the space do, so I'm hoping to find a way to add those back to the streams without chewing up a lot of the host site's bandwidth, etc. But again, that's something, if you follow the live streams, you'll kind of see me working on in the background. And if I do get that working, I'll try and find time to make a video about that later this month. And now, that's the end of the video. Have a good day.